This is the story of a little boy who had a soft pink piggy, a soft toy that he kept in his bed and would sleep with every night. The little boy loved his little pig. It was his sleeping companion. Well, although the little pig was just made of material like cloth, it was very soft and very nice to hold. But what the little boy didn't know is what the pig would do when he's asleep. Because the pig would wake up and come alive when the little boy is asleep and do all sorts of adventures. And tonight I'm going to tell you about one adventure the little pig had when the boy was fast asleep. So, the little boy was lying down in his bed with his eyes closed, light out, and dreaming.
What?
I don't know what he was dreaming of, but the little pig was starting to wake up, as the pig does when the little boy falls asleep. Because it's certainly true that whenever the boy is wide awake, the pig is just like any other stuffed toy. It just lies there like a teddy bear, anything, any toy you can think of without moving. But we all know that when children are asleep, the toys wake up. And when the children wake up, the toys go back to sleep. It's a bit of a topsy-turvy world like that. Anyway.
Oh, doing that children are looking, and it's still the morning time, and they wake up. Like in Toy Story.
It's a bit like Toy Story, yes, exactly. When the children come, the toys pretend to be asleep. When the children go, they wake up. Just like Toy Story. Anyway, this is the story tonight about what the pig did one night. It's one of his adventures. So the little boy was fast asleep in his bed, and the pig woke up and decided to fly out of the window. So he flapped his ears and flew out of the window and flew all the way to Egypt, where the river Nile flows. Now you probably know in Egypt there are some very tall, strange-shaped buildings. Do you know what they're called?
Pyramids.
They're called pyramids. Pyramids are like triangles, but they're on the ground, of course. And do you know what is buried inside pyramids?
No.
It's the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. So the pig flew all the way to ancient Egypt and saw a pyramid. And the pig thought, I'd like to see what's inside. So he flew around the pyramid, and eventually he found a tunnel going down. He went down the tunnel, and then forward. It was very, very dark. And finally he got to a room which was filled with the most ornate and beautiful treasures you can possibly imagine. Gold, silks, and all sorts of other wonderful looking treasures like jewels and lovely garments. The garments are like clothing, but beautiful colours. And then the pig noticed something hidden away in the corner, but covered in gold. It was a sarcophagus. And do you know what we might find in a sarcophagus?
A mummy.
And maybe a mummy. Another name for a sarcophagus is a coffin. It's where dead people lie, in a sarcophagus or a coffin. Now, the pig was quite curious to know what was inside the sarcophagus. So he slowly opened the lid and looked inside. And inside there was something which looked like a man wrapped up in bandages. What could it be?
A mummy.
It was indeed. It was an ancient Egyptian mummy wrapped in bandages. And on the mummy's face was a golden mask in solid gold, representing the man who was dead inside the bandages. And do you know, by any chance, the name of the pharaoh inside the golden mask?
I don't know.
I'll give you a clue. It starts with 2,
2,
10,
10,
Ka,
Ka,
Mun.
Moon.
It was Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun was one of the kings of ancient Egypt. He was only about 18 years old when he died. Nobody knows how he died, but now he was wrapped up in bandages, sitting or lying in the coffin or lying in the sarcophagus. Well, your pig was very surprised to see a young man wrapped in bandages with a golden mask lying in the sarcophagus. The pig made the sort of noise that pigs make. Oink, 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 oink. And then suddenly, what do you think happened?
Mommy stood up.
Yeah, the mummy sat up. And the mummy looked straight at the pig and then reached out his arms to grab the pig like this. But the mummy could only move very slowly. He was probably very stiff from being in the sarcophagus for the last 5,000 years.
Daddy, why do mummies walk way slowly?
Well, because they're stiff. Because they've been in a imagine if you couldn't move for 5,000 years and then suddenly they let you out of the coffin. Well, I think you'd take a little bit of time to limber up. You need to loosen your joints. So they're going, they're very, very stiff to start with, like a rusty nail. But once you've oiled it and got used to being moved, it's quite okay. So the mummy sat up and reached out for the pig. The pig squeaked with fear, oink, 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 and ran out of the chamber, the antechamber where the Prince Tutankhamun, the King Tutankhamun was, ran through the passageway, up the corridor, up the tunnel, and came out into the open air, into the desert, into the Egyptian desert, which you know is made of sand, and then jumped into the air, flapped his wings, and flew all...
His ears.
Sorry, did I say wings? Yes, he flapped his ears. And he flew all the way back to the little boy's bedroom, came in the bedroom, and lay down on the bed where he'd started. And the little boy knew nothing at all about that. Now, the next day, by coincidence and unrelated to the pig's adventure, the little boy's daddy decided to show his little boy a video about the ancient mummies of Egypt and the tombs of Egypt and the pyramids of Egypt. Well,
Daddy, why the pyramids in Egypt?
why are they in Egypt?
Yes.
I don't know why they're there, but that's what they decided to build 2,000 years before Christ, about 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Maybe it was to give the people something to do. If you keep them busy by building something, perhaps they won't cause any trouble. But anyway, that was the situation. The king of Egypt ordered the people to build pyramids, give them something to do. So, but the boy was now watching on YouTube a video about the pyramids of Egypt. And the little pig, who was actually inanimate, that means not moving, because pigs can't be moving when the little boys are awake, could hear what was being said. And when he heard the word pyramid, he remembered his awful experience when King Tutankhamun sat up in his sarcophagus and reached out to grab him. The poor little pig, even though he was supposed to be asleep, was trembling. Luckily for the pig, nobody noticed. But he was trembling with fright because the pyramids now frightened him no end. Anyway, that's kind of the end of the story. There's not a lot more to say. It's the story of how the pig flew all the way to Egypt, where the Nile is, the River Nile, and went inside a pyramid and found King Tutankhamun in a sarcophagus. So that was the story. Did you like it?
Some more words about the story.
What's that?
Some more words from the story.
More of the story. That's the end of the story. That's all I can tell you. Some more words. Well, let's say the words we learned. Did you learn the word pyramid?
Pyramid.
Did you learn the word Tutankhamun?
The story goes. Can you tell the story goes round in circles?
Oh, like the two men in a cave, you mean?
Yes.
Well, this is a long story because it never ends. Once upon a time, there were two men in a cave.
No, you must tell it was a cold.
Oh, yes. It was a cold, dark, and stormy night,
Cold and cold.
and two men were sitting in a cave. And one said to the other, "Jack, tell us a story." And Jack began. And the story went like this. It was a cold, dark, and stormy night, and two men were sitting in a cave. And one man said to the other, "Jack, tell us a story." And Jack began. It was a cold, dark, and stormy night, and two people were sitting in a cave.
The two men.
Yes, two men. There were men, yes, you're right. And one said to the other, "Jack, tell us a story." So Jack began. It was a cold, dark, and stormy night, and two men were sitting in a cave. Okay, question. What are their names?
Peter
Yes?
and Jack.
Correct. Peter and Jack. And Peter said to Jack, "Jack, tell us a story." And Jack began. It was a cold, dark, and stormy night, and two men were sitting in a cave. And one man said to the other, "Jack, tell us a story."
Can you stop that story, please?
And Jack began. By the way, I think this story goes on forever. I'm going to have to stop it now.
Why?
Otherwise, we'll keep going all night. I'm sleepy. All right. Good night, Aidan. Time to sleep.
Why does it go every